Today, we have Elizabeth Kipp, the stress management and historical trauma specialist and author of The Way Through Chronic Pain, Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power. Today on Self-Development Sunday, I'm your host, Brittany Starr, here to guide you through getting to know a special indie author. Get ready for some personal development with Self-Development Sundays right now. To show Elizabeth. This is Elizabeth Kipp. She has written the book, The Way Through Chronic Pain, which I think a lot of us suffer from. I don't know. I know I personally do. So I'm kind of excited to get to know you a little bit. Welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Well, thanks so much, Brittany. I really appreciate the invitation. And, a quarter of the world, a quarter of the United States and really North America, according to the National Institutes of Health, pre-COVID, suffer with chronic pain across all socioeconomic measures, including children. And the World Health Organization, again, pre-COVID, estimated a fifth of the world.
Wow.
Again, including all socioeconomic measures, including children. So it all by itself is a silent pandemic.
Right.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to write this book in particular?
Oh, I was in it. I suffered with chronic pain for 40 years. But for the audience, I just want to define chronic pain because people get confused about what it is. Okay. It's any pain that's felt. 15 days out of 30, it doesn't feel good. Any pain that's felt 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more is chronic. Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. The brain can't tell the difference between a broken bone and a broken heart. It all sends the same signal to the brain. It hurts. So that's the definition. Why is it a thing? Like versus acute pain? Acute pain, the stress response, which is this kind of, it's kind of a set point that when we get stressed, it reacts and does things to our physiology to get us to help us deal with whatever the stress is, and then it goes back to reset to normal. In chronic pain, it gets out of balance and it stays in the on position. So that creates changes in the brain and anyone suffering with chronic pain will recognize this. We get brain fog. We have difficulty focusing. I can't remember what the hell I just did or where I just put my whatever, right? That kind of thing. I used to, when I was really suffering from this, I used to watch a new movie and the next morning I wouldn't remember it and I could watch it again like it was brand new. That's how it affected. This is an example, kind of an extreme example. I don't have that problem anymore, but I did for what was in it. That was a perk, kind of being able to watch the same movie afresh more than once. That was kind of interesting. But the other thing it does is it hits the emotional center in the brain, affects it. So we already have generally in a healthy person a negative bias, kind of no. First thing, new thing is like, no, I'm not doing that. That's how we stay safe in the world. We have a little negative bias. In chronic pain, it gets accentuated and where everything's bad, you're bad, I'm bad. Usually it's like we're blaming other people or we're blaming ourselves. And a lot of times it's this twisted inside of us. So that's a problem. Does that sound familiar? Any of that sound familiar to you?
Definitely brain fog. My kids out of me all the time. I'm like, what's the thing? Fork. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's the other thing. If you've got a busy life like children and you're having a chronic pain experience, you're going to get more stressed. I just know that as a mom. For me, I raised a child in this space and it was a challenge. I didn't homeschool him. If I had homeschooled him, it would have been an epic challenge, right? But still, I was on all the time. I was, right? And it wasn't until he left and went to college, like in another state, before I was actually able to sleep through the night. I had to have enough nights in a row where I wasn't keeping an ear open, right? Where I finally was able to sleep, right? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that mothers with children, it's kind of its own version of chronic pain.
Right. That makes sense. Whew. So in your book, The Way Through Chronic Pain, you emphasize non-pharmaceutical techniques to clear pain. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the doctors that I saw, except the very last one, and I was in chronic pain for 40 years. And I was under the care of a doctor for 31 of the last 31 of those, one kind of a doctor or another. They, except for the last doctor, they all said that I would never heal. They all said, you can't get better from this, just learn to live with it. And I didn't believe that. And there are reasons why I didn't believe that. I have a science background, and I know that I know that's paradigms shift in science, and Western medicine is based in science. So also science is limited in what it can comment on, and it can only comment on things that it can observe, measure, and describe. But where do we live? We live in the all that is, not only the part that science can observe, measure, and describe. So we heal in the all that is as well. So they offer a perspective that's useful, but it has limitation. Okay. And they were telling me more about the limitation of their model when they told me I wouldn't heal than they were telling me about the body's ability to heal. That's just the way I saw it. Now it was up to me to kind of find my way. And now I'm not saying that they didn't help, but they gave me, their answer was opiates and benzodiazepines, and the last 15 years was fentanyl and Ativan. So you're not going to run into too many people that were on 15 years of that. Right? I still am. I'm still kind of humbled that I'm alive. So the thing is that those things don't heal the changes that happen in the brain because of chronic pain. Okay. They don't heal it, and they in the long run, they're actually not healing. Pain medicine and anti-anxiety medicine are very useful for acute pain. If you can't settle down and sleep, and the pain cycle's so out of the stress response is so out of it, so is so off balance that you need to break the cycle, that short term that can help, but you got to bring in other tools that will help with that. That's not a permanent solution.
So can you tell us a couple of tools, like what would be?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So we begin. So if you think about healing, there's a hierarchy to healing. Regulate the nervous system first. Mm-hmm. Next, you want a sense of belonging, or relate, and then you can learn. But if you're activated and all upset, you don't have a sense of belonging, and you can't learn things. So we don't make good decisions when we get upset. And everybody who's listening to this knows that. It's just now understanding the hierarchy there, nervous system first. When I get shook up, because life happens, and when I get shook up in the world, whoever wants me to make a decision in the moment, they can wait until I get regulated again. Right? And then I'll make a decision, because I don't make good decisions, when I'm upset.
Right.
And the way we do that is it's very simple. We just leverage the power of the breath. Okay. Yeah. So there's the 10th cranial nerve is the vagus nerve. It's the wandering nerve. Vagus means wandering. And it comes into the face and the ears and the throat and the heart and the lungs and down into all the organs. So it wanders all over. And the breath connected into the heart, and all we have to do is give a signal to the vagus nerve when it gets activated, because that's the point when we get upset and worried and oh my God, it's the vagus nerve that's being activated. So we bring in a long, slow, deep breath, maybe 3 minutes of that. And you need 3 minutes for the body to really get the signal, for the vagus nerve to get the signal. Oh, I'm safe after all. And the nervous system calms down. Then you feel like you come back to yourself, and then you can make a decision.
Okay.
So the beginning, so when we're healing chronic pain, we want to address the nervous system first.
Okay.
Yeah, start there. We want to work. That's polyvagal theory. Dr. Stephen Porges's work. There's all kinds of practices that you can, where you can apply polyvagal theory. Has been very helpful. I teach trauma-informed yoga, which really leverages all the tools, the application tools of polyvagal theory to help people. Most people that I know, pretty much everybody I know that's in chronic pain, actually has unresolved trauma that they're in their system. So I bring in trauma-informed yoga that helps us move that stuck energy gently out of the body and help the body begin to heal and again regulate. So breath is one. Long, deep breathing, just breathing in through the left nostril long and deep is another one. It sends a signal. When you breathe in the left side, you stimulate the calming center in the brain. So that helps to calm down. Also, meditation will help quiet the mind, and that gives the brain a chance to rest. It's one I know. I don't know how many people are who's listening to this, but I can kind of hear groans. I can, oh God, meditation. I don't know how to do that. Well, it's actually the easiest thing in the world to do. People say, oh, my mind's so busy. Well, you know what? So I sit in meditation sometimes. All I'm doing is focusing on the breath, and my mind is just, dancing. And I just let them. I just let the thoughts do what they do, but I just come back to the breath. That's meditation.
Years ago, I was researching, I love to research religions, and I was researching Buddhism, and they were saying you should meditate at least 10 minutes a day. And if you're really busy, you should meditate an hour.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's a good one. Yeah, I've heard that before. That's a good one. The thing that's interesting about meditation is, there's a lot of science on it, and I'd like there to be more. But there's something magical about, because I haven't read the science that talks about this piece. There's something magical about meditation and what you just said. Because if we feel like we're so busy that we don't have 10 minutes to meditate, that means we have a time management problem. And to me, in the position that I'm in now, where I've been meditating since, I don't know, the mid 1970s, and then when I got healed from chronic pain 10 years ago, my meditation practice really blossomed. So it became very powerful. It's interesting because if I'm running so fast that I don't think I have 10 minutes to meditate in a day, then I've got a problem with the present moment. I'm not leveraging the present moment. I'm in the past or the future. I'm in the past or the future. I'm worried about whatever. I'm not present. Well, you sit and meditate for an hour. I challenge anybody listening. You sit and meditate for an hour. I don't care what kind of meditation it is. If it's chanted meditation, a silent meditation, a breath meditation. I wouldn't suggest like a guided word story meditation. That's not really meditation. Not what I'm talking about. But any of those. And then you come back and tell me, when you run that experiment, you come back and tell me what your experience is. Because I'm going to tell you right now, your time management is going to change in a heartbeat. You're going to become much more efficient at what you do during the day because you'll be present and focused. And I just get like tons of stuff done.
That's awesome. I wonder if this would be good for ADHD, because do you see the correlation? Yeah.
Absolutely. Now that's an interesting thing you bring in. So I have some trauma training. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a trauma therapist, but I'm a great coach in the space. And Bessel van der Kolk, who has done a ton of work on trauma, he wrote a book called I think it's The Body Keeps the Score, which is quite an interesting book on trauma. And he talks about, he's not the only one, Dr. Gabor Mate talks about this too, how ADHD, I've heard them talk about that being a trauma response, where you have difficulty focusing. Mm-hmm. So if it's a trauma response, then our approach to healing it is not, we don't necessarily have to go to pharmaceuticals. We can, you see, we've got some other, we can do some trauma work. We've got some other, I'm not saying pharmaceuticals aren't useful at all, but I'm saying they're not the only tool in the toolbox. Yeah.
Agreed. I was actually looking into that myself. I'm not ADHD, but my husband is. And I was looking at that. I'm like, this is a trauma response, and I think it's something you can work on. Like, yeah, that's super interesting. Can you also talk about ancestral clearing?
Right. So I went into this pain management program. I'll show you the book. So this is a book that Dr. Peter Prescott, he's the guy that took me through and got me detoxed and helped me heal. Conquer Chronic Pain and Innovative Mind-Body Approach. He passed away in 2016, but he left us this beautiful book. And my book is, I helped him write the exercises in the back of the book because I had done them. And then my book is kind of a follow-up to his book. His is the doctory, researchery book, and mine's more like the patient. This is what a chronic pain sufferer sounds like, the inner voice sounds like, and this is kind of what we go through, and this is the tools we use. So that is a nice pair. So Dr. Peter had, we called him Dr. Peter. His last name is Prescott, but we called him Dr. Peter. He had this pain management program that I went into, and within that program, he had a wellness practitioner named John Newton, who has a business called Health Beyond Belief. And you can find him online, healthbeyondbelief.com. And he was an ancestral clearing practitioner. And he brought this modality into Dr. Peter's program. And John learned kind of a guy named Howard Wills, who you can also find online, Howard Wills, who lives in Kauai and Hawaii. He pioneered this particular kind of ancestral healing, and John developed it further and teaches it and calls it ancestral clearing. And so he brought this modality into a pain track, which was this pain management program. And I didn't know what he was doing. I knew we were doing something, but because of my training in science, I had my science hat on. No, I'm in a new place with a bunch of new people, and I'm doing a new thing. And you better believe I was taking data. I was like checking out the room on all levels the best I could. And we started into his process, and he had us all talk about our pain level. But before, from on a scale of 0 to 10, before he did the process, and we were all at, there were 20 people in the room. We were at 8 to 20 is what people reported. I was at an 8, and there were people that were way above that in terms of, they went beyond the scale of 10. So lots of pain in the room. And then we did the process, and we got about halfway through the process, and I felt the energy in the room change. And because it was marked. There was a marked change in the room, but because I was detoxing from all that medication, I just figured it was my imagination and my detox. I just thought I was imagining it. Right? Something's wrong with me. Right? No, we finished the process, and I just started feeling my pain disappear. I was like, well, that's not fake. That's not my imagination. That's real, right? So my pain went down from an 8 to a 2. And everyone else's went down markedly like that. Everybody got, from an 8 to a 20, they went from like to a 0 to an 8. So that was a very big change. And I was just stunned. I was like, what happening here? And, is this repeatable? Right? First, science hat, right? Is this repeatable? Can we measure it? And does he teach it? And he does teach it. I went and took the first training straight out of treatment. I've been in this as a practitioner ever since 2014, doing this work. And it's really based on, I could talk to you about it on a bunch of different levels, but let's just say it this way. Spiritual teachers have been telling us for thousands of years we come into this life with the gifts and the burdens of our ancestors. Science has been able to actually begin to measure some of those things. Mm-hmm. So the imprints of Rachel Yehuda has done work on Holocaust survivors versus people that were not exposed to that experience, and finds a difference in cortisol levels, which is a stress hormone. So that's interesting, right? So that's something's happening between one generation and another. So we have also, they can, and this is going to sound weird, but they've actually been able to measure in science, they've been able to measure 7 generations front and back in a nematode. So that's 14 generations there. So that's what science can measure. From a sciencey measuring point of view, from a Newtonian physics point of view. Then you can think about it from the angle of the egg that was you was in your mother, but it was in your mother. All the eggs that your mother had were in her when she was 4 months old in the womb. So you shared space with your grandmother and your mother. And your grandmother shared space with her mother and her grandmother. So you see how we're all connected in time, energetically that way. We're all sharing space some way. So that's another way to look at that. So we come in with these kind of tendencies. Epigenetics is a whole science around what happens in the environment. We have certain tendencies that our genes give us, but depending on the environment, depends on whether the gene gets switched on or off. That's kind of a quick, simple way of putting it. So we get affected that way. And the quantum physicists tell us that, so I'm hitting it from another angle here. Quantum physicists tell us that we can access the past, present, and future through the present moment. The yogis have said there's only one moment. When you look at the physics of the infinite, there's only one moment. It's just us that segments, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just our human experience in this plane of existence that does this segmenting of time. Also, they say we live, just to get cosmic for a minute, they say we live within time and beyond time at the same time. So that's kind of interesting, right? We're in this human experience, but we have the soul which is infinite, so it lives beyond time. The eternal is beyond time. I used to think it meant forever, but it doesn't. It means beyond time. So that's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
So ancestral clearing works on those principles, and that's why the process works, is because we can actually access whatever's coming up in the present moment that's been imprinted from the past. We can access that through the present.
I remember reading it was an article, like they were researching something about science, and they were saying how they found that you could have an imprint from like your grandmother. If she was afraid of water, you might have that same fear, like your fears are passed down. So that's interesting that you bring that up. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they found that with mice or cats or rabbits or something. I don't know. They found that with doing some lab work. With some lab animals, they found that. In my practice, we're very careful as practitioners of ancestral clearing to not make claims of healing anything, but people report we have patterns. I see patterns. And one of the things that I notice is, and you'll see this, is it's similar to what you're talking about. What I notice is indigenous people, the Irish and the African Americans pretty much unanimously have difficulty accessing joy. Also, the Jewish population, people that have that, all this burden, right? Just like extreme torment and burden in their lineage. Accessing joy is a theme, and so it's very interesting to work this process and to work with people like that to see if they can actually clear enough so that they can actually experience joy. The yogis say our essential nature is joy, and our job is to clear all the blocks to it. So nice. Yeah, so that's an example. Also, I get a lot of clients that have issues around scarcity.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So a worry energy is another one, just a constant worry. And all these things are speaking to fear, which is what you started with. You brought that in. You brought in fear. Yeah. All versions of that.
So is there a difference between, like, say there was an incident, a car accident or some kind of incident that took place that you have chronic pain? Does it change the way you treat that person versus someone that, I don't know, they just, as they've gotten older, they've just collected more and done less?
That's a very interesting question. I would say that they're the same in terms of we're looking at a whole person. So if you're just looking at, because this happened to me, I had a broken bone on my back, a broken and displaced bone on my back, and the doctors kept looking at the bone. They kept looking, oh, well, this is the thing. Well, the thing is if you look at three different x-rays, three different people that have my condition, they all have the same x-rays. All the x-rays look the same. But you'll see three different behaviors in those people. One will have chronic pain all the time. The other one will have chronic pain only when they're stressed. And the other one won't have any pain at all. How do you explain that only looking at the x-rays? You can't. So we have to look at the whole person. And I remember when I met Dr. Peter Prescott, he didn't want to look at my x-rays or my records. He said, I don't need to look at that. I need to know who you are. And I was looking at him and I was like, who are you? And where have you been all my life? It's like, this is just not the way I had been treated at all. So not that the other doctors didn't try. They did the best with what the way they were trained. Peter just had a different, he was trained in a bunch of different things. So, and he specialized in chronic pain. Anyway, so the answer is, it depends. The answer is, here's the question. The doctors that told me I wasn't going to get better, here's the thing. They never asked why I wasn't healing. They just assumed I wouldn't. And when you make an assumption, you got to be aware of your assumptions, because whatever your assumptions are closing off possibilities. Right, that could be. So they're closing off other questions you could be asking. So I was like, they're assuming that I'm not going to heal. How is a patient supposed to get any traction with a doctor who said you're not going to heal? That's their assumption, right? So an understanding that the body is an incredible healing machine. And if you have an injury from a car accident, mine was from falling from a horse. And then you have somebody else, like I have someone else in my world who has fibromyalgia, which is, kind of an autoimmune thing that they don't really know what that is. Well, you can still use these tools and find, we had people that had that in Peter's pain track. You can still use these tools and find relief. I'm not making a claim. I'm just saying that these are tools that can help support and start to help the body as a whole, in a whole way, to looking at the whole system. You can't really separate mind, body, and spirit. We try to, because that's the approach of Western science, but it's all one. One affects the other. So the question for somebody who has fibromyalgia or is pain all the time, or maybe somebody who's aging and is getting gradual more and more pain, versus the person who has had an accident and isn't healing, they're both chronic pain people. What's happening with their whole body system? How are they similar? How are they different? That would be an interesting question.
Yeah, that was, I'm like, oh, that is an interesting thing. Okay, so your book, where is it available?
Oh, you can get it on my website at elizabeth-kipp.com. You got to put a hyphen in between my first and last name. Okay. I'll send you an autographed copy, or you can get a copy from Amazon.
Oh, that's awesome. And besides your website, what are your socials that you're most active on?
Oh, you can get on my website and find all my socials, but I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, a little bit on Threads, but I have a YouTube channel. And so you can catch me in all those places. I don't do TikTok. That's just like one too many things for me. So I hang out on those places. And you can locate me, of course, through any of those, either through my website or through social media. Yep.
Oh, that's wonderful. You have a lot of really good information. I think we could probably talk for hours about this. Is there anything that you want to leave with the audience today?
I would like to remind everybody remind everybody that the greatest healer in your life lives within. It doesn't live out there, like the doctors and the nurses and the therapists and all that. They can help guide us, and they can help us set the conditions for maximum healing. But the healing is the infinite, is the intelligence within. So make sure you don't get those two confused. And then the other thing is, you're not your pain. You're experiencing your pain, but it's not who you are.
So don't let it become you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, don't identify with it. It's just an experience you're having. Yeah, that for me, that was a very powerful distinction.
Right. And okay, so do you have 3 things that someone suffering from chronic pain right now can do to help themselves?
Yes. 1, regulate the breath, that long, deep breathing, or left nostril breathing, 3 minutes at least. See how that feels as a practice. Do it every day. Mm-hmm. I would suggest doing it, doing that long, deep breathing 10 minutes a day, just keep doing it. That's going to have all kinds of beautiful calming effects on the nervous system. Another one is, don't judge your pain as bad. It's just information. It's information from the body. And if you call it bad, you're putting a negative spin on it, and you're just adding to the problem. Mm-hmm. And then the other one would be, learn how to meditate. It's not that hard. I can teach you. I can teach you. There's ways to do it. If you've got trauma in the system, there's some ways that are kind of better than others. And it doesn't take that long to teach. So I'm happy to do. There's lots of people that teach meditation, but I can do it from the chronic pain point of view, the trauma trained point of view. I can do that. So those are the 3 things.
Awesome. That is wonderful. I've had a great time talking to you today, and I really appreciate you coming on Self-Development Sundays, because boy, if you can get pain under control, you can really do some self-development, can't you?
That's right. Well, thank you so much for this opportunity, Brittany. It was so nice to talk with you.
You too. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us on this enlightening episode of the Zarlequan podcast. Remember to subscribe to our newsletter so you never miss a beat.